So you've had some shows recently.
I have had shows.
Tell me.
Well, you know what? I'm excited. I just got to do a show for Men's First Step House, which is alcoholic recovery.
Oh, cool.
For North County. It was wonderful. I love doing shows for the recovery community because they're so appreciative.
Yeah.
They're great audiences. They're very engaged. They're very, because they're not in a bar.
Right.
So they fill churches. They're great audiences.
Awesome.
So I produce a show monthly.
Okay.
At the Merc in Old Town Temecula.
Okay.
That's fun because it's a very intimate situation, 50, 70 seats. So anybody that comes, you're right there with your person.
Right. Is that kind of a new deal down there, or has that been going on for a while?
I've done comedy there for about a year and a half.
Okay.
So fairly new, but the city of Temecula is happy with us. I get to, this month is Brad Upton.
Ooh.
He's interesting because he has the number 1 to top viewed dry bar comedy special, which is clean comedy, but he's in his 60s and he's gone viral. I don't know how long he's been a comedian, maybe 30, 40 years. I don't know, long time.
Right.
And now suddenly he's viral and he's touring the country. So
nice.
I get to have him at the Merc.
Did YouTube and the internet kind of help jumpstart that?
Yeah, he has 200 million views on one of his specials.
Oh, wow.
So I called him up and asked him. I said,
Yeah.
"Hey, you want to come to Temecula? Do you have fans out here?"
Yeah. Yeah.
And we've been sold out since January for that show. It's just exciting for me to get to work with people like that.
Sure.
To see people that I wouldn't normally have access to.
Yeah, and who've been doing that for decades. Well, you've been doing it for decades yourself.
I've been doing it for about 12 years. And really, that's, it sounds like a lot, but I think you kind of hit your stride at the 10-year mark. Some people maybe a little sooner.
Yeah.
But it wasn't about 10 years, and I was like, I got this. When you can handle whatever happens on stage. I still get a little, I think, nervous a little bit right before, but I channel that into excitement. And I have to remind myself, I like doing this.
Sure.
This is fun.
Sure.
This is a fun thing to do.
I'm not just completely terrified.
Right? Right?
What made you decide to get into comedy?
I always wanted to do it. And I remember seeing Dante. He went to high school with us.
Right.
And he's been a comedian since 8th grade. Maybe even younger. I don't know.
Dante Ruscielli.
Yeah, Ruscielli. So he just goes by Dante, the white one.
The white one.
Yeah,
got it.
And he was performing at the Comedy Store, and I would try to write some jokes for him. Just one or two of them.
Uh-huh.
And I was trying to get pregnant in my 30s and 40s, and it was not happening. I had infertility.
Okay.
And I struggled with that. And I thought, God, I want to think about something else besides trying to get pregnant. It was consuming me. And I thought, what? I always wanted to do stand-up comedy. What's stopping me? What am I afraid of? And I realized I've seen enough shit in my life that there's nothing, this can't kill me.
Right.
So I took a class, and I took another class, and I started performing, and I got really excited that there's a dialogue to be had on stage. Hopefully they're not talking as much as I am.
Right.
But it just caught, and I wanted to do it again and again and again. And I realized when you're beginning, you're not good enough to just get on stage. So I started hosting my own shows.
Okay.
And hosting them and getting active on stage.
If I build it, they will come.
Yeah, and they did. Well, the thing about starting when you're older is that people don't know how much experience you have. So if I start when I'm 40, people think I've already been doing it 20 years. So I learned get funny fast and right.
Sure.
So I think that helped quite a bit.
Did you think that gave you a little bit of credibility?
Excuse me.
Sure.
I thought I turned it off. Sorry.
That's all right. Do you think it gave you a little bit of credibility starting older? Like people made assumptions that...
Oh, yeah, for sure. People thought because I'm in my 40s, well, obviously I've been doing it for a while.
Yeah, you've been doing it for 20 years, obviously.
Right.
So.
And I had booked, I'd been acting, I'd done other things. So I had a confidence.
Okay.
Or fake confidence.
Yeah, that was going to be the next question. So what were you doing before comedy started?
Oh, commercial real estate and every other job. I was in New York. So this is pre-internet. And basically, if you had a business card that said, this is what I do, you could get, someone paid you $1, you were that. So I'd had, I don't know, 20 different jobs. I was doing all kinds of stuff. But for a long stretch of time was property management and commercial real estate. And I was slowly dying I realized, oh my God, I'm going to make X amount of dollars every week, and this is what I'm worth. And it just, I needed to know I could make extra money. I've always needed to do that because I never wanted to be limited by my paycheck.
Sure.
Like, I'm only worth $50,000. I'm only worth $70,000. I'm like, no, that's not fair.
I want to be able to do this, so I just need to make more money.
What is cool about what I do is that I like to say I'm money adjacent.
Okay.
I may not have money to donate to whatever cause, but I can put together a good show and raise money, a chunk of money to give to people who need it. So I do tons of fundraisers.
Nice.
It means I get paid to do what I love, but I'm able to generate resources for some great causes.
Sure. What are some other things that you've done besides this most recent gig? As far as generating.
Oh gosh, we did a show. This is a few years ago, but pre-pandemic, we did a show there was a local family whose child had survived a drowning with considerable brain damage, and needed all kinds of treatment and therapies and it was a local family, so we were able to just do a fundraiser, have people come out, and I had a couple of people say, "Well, why don't we just give the money to the people? Like, why do we need to come to the show?" And I said, "Because you didn't." Because you could have.
Right.
But you didn't.
And you didn't.
So this is an opportunity for people to, let's say, buy a ticket, come out to the show, or get other people to come out, regardless of whether or not they know what the cause is for. Just, hey, there's a great comedy show. Look who's performing. And then once they're there, then I shake them down even more. So we're able to just hand the family, here's some money.
Yeah, it's interesting how much comedy and trauma / tragedy / sadness are very close neighbors in many ways. And I'm always kind of curious about that.
They say comedy is tragedy plus time.
Yeah.
And you can't go on stage and use it like therapy. The audience has to know you're okay. Otherwise it's not funny. It's just weird.
I could see that. If you're going out and you're just working through all your own shit on stage, then it just kind of becomes sad. Right.
But there are people that, like, Tig Notaro, there are people there who handle, let's say, a cancer diagnosis or whatever. I think Jim Gaffigan talked about his wife's tumor.
Right.
And he came up with all kinds of material about it. It's how we're able to manage some of these, I think.
What is it about tragedy that's so funny for us?
I wouldn't say it's funny. It's more about putting it into perspective or finding the funny in it so you can handle it. I started doing comedy because I had infertility, and I was talking about not being able to get pregnant. Apparently that's hilarious to some people.
Right.
But people afterwards would come up and say, "I'm so glad you're talking about this."
Yeah.
And that was everything to me. That was great.
It's interesting how you really become relatable to some people. Like, I guess everybody goes through shit, right? And I think that's one of the biggest ways that we relate to other people is that, you know, we've all experienced not just shit, but like similar shit. And even though our stories may be a little bit different in the specifics, it's nice to know that there are other people out there who are kind of having the same experiences that we are, that we're not alone.
I think I'm now teaching with Andrew Norelli. We're teaching comedy classes, and I love seeing the people that come to the class because they're all different ages. And I love comedy doesn't have to have an age limit. As long as you're staying relevant, as long as you're staying present and writing, you can be a comedian at any age.
Right.
And I like that because, again, now I'm in my 50s. And
right.
I've got more work than I would have had even 10 years ago.
Yeah. Well, you still got like 40 years to go.
Yeah, that's right.
So, yeah.
We'll say, wheel me out there. What about that internet?
Yeah.
Well, there's things that I get called out on too. I've written jokes where I talk about the radio, and I've had people say, "Who listens to the radio?" And that's all apps. I'm like, okay, gotta
fuck you.
Hey, well, but I've got to stay relevant. What are they listening to? I got to co-host a psychologist radio show for years because of the skills that, you know, in learning comedy and in learning to stay present and learning to tap into people's experience.
Sure.
It gives you some funny friends. and it allows you the ability to just kind of riff on anything.
Do you feel like comedy helps you in the nuts and bolts of communication at all?
Well, yes and no. People think you're like the class clown. I mean, there are some people that are legitimately like that, but if they know,
like when you mentioned Dante, like I immediately think that like class clown, like he's always been like that.
Yes, but he's also a business owner and a parent, and he's able to have normal conversations with people. Like comedians aren't necessarily funny off stage.
Sure,
it's context. You got to be on stage in front of an audience telling your material. It's like asking a chef, well, cook something. You're like, but he needs a kitchen. He needs ingredients. He needs, there's context. So I don't know if that's a good analogy. I hope it is. But it's, where people expect, oh, you're funny. Tell me a joke.
Yeah. Like they expect you just to be able to
like,
just drop one.
Shoot somebody. Like just right. Like, you know,
yeah.
arrest this.
Yeah.
I don't, people start telling me, oh, you can use this in your little skits. I'm like, no, I got my own shit I can use, you know. But they unburden themselves.
Sure.
They tell you stuff.
Sure. What's your style? Are you more of a storyteller, more of a one-liner?
Stand-up comedy isn't really, I mean, there are people that tell stories and they kind of string jokes together, but storytelling is its own thing. Stand-up is kind of like most modern stand-up is like kind of a laugh every 30 seconds. It's boom, boom, boom. It's about what we talk about. I'm not political. I'm not real dark. I'm not a character.
Right.
You know, like when we think of like, I don't think character or a prop comic, like I'm not like Carrot Top or you know, somebody really.
Well, like Larry the Cable Guy is kind of a character, right?
Right. So I'm talking about relationships and day-to-day observations.
Life.
A lot of it is relationships, and certainly relationships in middle age.
Sure.
You know, and or related to what I would have been like when I was younger. I appeal to women. What's really funny when I find comics talking about, they're getting a laugh because they're talking about fat chicks or they did a fat chick. And I'm like, guess who bought the tickets, dickhead?
Yeah.
The fat chicks. You know, we all struggle with weight issues or body issues or how we look. I mean, God, there's so much pressure. And
especially now.
When I see the women come out, I'm like, yeah, every man in this room is here because some woman said we're going to comedy. And I appreciate them.
Right.
And it makes it safe for them to sit in the front row because no one's going to just assault them for, oh, you sat in the front row. Clearly I can pick on you. Like that's not good comedy.
Yeah. Yeah. Just being able to assault
crowd
people
work is a skill.
From the stage, right?
Crowd work is a skill. And there are comics that are subversive or that you know, can go after people and it's sort of fun, but those people's fans know what they're getting into.
Yeah.
Typically, I don't like to injure the audience. I want them to come back.
Every once in a while, there's that one person, though, that just won't let it go, right?
Yeah, with anything. You get hecklers. I have been lucky. Not so much, but they happen.
Sure.
Different people handle them differently. I'm a big fan of Matt Rife. He's a young comic, but he's been at it 10-something years. He's only, I want to say 25, 27.
Oh, wow.
But crowd work is a gift where you can handle a heckler and for the most part, everybody's still friends.
Sure.
You know, it's not fun to just assault someone or you want to shut down the show that's happening in the audience with somebody acting up like that.
Some people just have that quick wit. I feel like I would not have that quick wit. Like somebody would heckle me and I would just stand there looking like just like an idiot.
Sure, if
know?
that was tomorrow. But let's say over the course of your career, you've seen enough that you know how someone's going to behave.
Sure.
And you go, okay, this is going to be like that.
Sure.
So this is how I'm going to handle it.
You kind of have certain tools in your toolbox. You know, when I get heckle A, I'm going to throw out response B. And
well, why are they heckling? Because they're drunk.
Yeah.
So it's usually not for any other reason. So how do we handle that? And Dante actually gave me some great advice about treating them like you would a drunk friend at a party. Like, hey, remember we're still friends? Or sometimes I make fun of the other people at the table. Like, oh, you brought Steve?
Yeah.
You guys are so patient. You guys are such wonderful friends. And you thought, hey, poor Steve, what a schmuck. Let's take him to the comedy show. What could possibly go wrong? Oh, I said, so I've gotten to handle situations like that. And if you keep it friendly, I'm going to do this now. Or I've said, I'm paying a babysitter by the hour. They're expensive. So let mommy finish her little gig.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Nice. Did you go to school for comedy or?
I took classes. I went to Manhattan Comedy School in New York.
Okay.
And I was taught by people who have long careers. It's not, they say those who can't teach.
Yeah.
But, and you'd be amazed. This is the only industry I've ever been in where people who have no stand-up comedy experience go, I bet I could teach that. And they set up classes.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they were in a related field, but they have never been stand-up comics.
Mm-hmm.
I learned from people like Corey Kahaney, Wally Collins. These are, I would say, New York comics who have huge careers.
Sure.
And they've performed in front of audiences for years and years and years. So they're teaching, let's say on a Monday and Tuesday, but on the weekends they're on tour.
Okay.
So it's additional income for them. But I got the benefit of getting up and close, like Wally Collins was on Chappelle's show. Corey Kahaney has had one-woman shows. These people, Jimmy Fallon, not Fallon, Fela. He's I know he's an anchor on a popular show. These are people who are just great because it's New York.
So people who had already made their
who
bones
have done every possible combination of show. Like you go to do a comedy show. It's not like, oh, suddenly I'm in front of 300 people in a beautiful theater. It's like you do some crap shows, or in some interesting spaces. I've done hair salons, shows are, hey, you got a stage, you got a mic. If someone goes, oh yeah, we're going to run the sound through our karaoke machine. I'm like, oh, you're So I've learned I have my own equipment. I have a speaker, a mic in case I'm somewhere where there isn't one.
Sure.
I've done it in all kinds of barbecue restaurants and, for all different kinds of shows. Yeah. It's flexible. It's a flexible career.
Right.
But
improvise, adapt, and overcome.
They're not all great. And when you start out, you don't make hardly any money.
Sure.
You do a lot of things for free just to get stage time.
Of course.
And then if you get funny, people start going, oh, hey, will you do my show? And you get more work. So I'm grateful that I have as much work as I do. I don't have to chase too much of it.
Sure.
I'm what you call a feature. So I'm the person that goes up before the person with big TV credits and whatnot. Okay. And I would probably be chasing more work, but I'm a single parent of young kids. So yeah, how much does a sitter cost versus how much I have to kind of.
Now you said you were in your 40s?
I was.
At some point, right?
When I started.
When you started having kids?
I had my kids at 45.
45?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Oh, well, I have boy-girl twins, and for years, I was married, and for years, I couldn't get pregnant. It's not a secret. This is actually, my story was in People magazine.
No kidding.
Yeah, about how families are made. And because I couldn't get pregnant, I decided to use donor sperm and donor egg.
Okay. Because
the doctor said to me, oh, if you use donor eggs, you have an 80% chance of getting pregnant. And I thought, why am I still rounds and rounds of IVF that didn't work and thousands of dollars? Why am I still trying to use my own faulty genetics or whatever? There was it was unexplained infertility. So we couldn't even fix whatever it was. And I think if they can't solve the problem, you shouldn't have to pay for it.
Right. Yeah. Right? Like you don't keep taking your car back to the mechanic
and go, they're like, hey, what's wrong with it?
Still making that noise.
So just, $1,000. Yeah. No. So I had, I was working in New York and I separated from my husband because he had to sign off on everything because they can't do IVF on you while you're married. If the husband's not going to say, hey.
I suppose that makes sense. Right.
Yeah. I said, no, you don't get to. He backed out of having kids. He backed out of trying. And I said, well,
gotcha. I suppose at some point from his point, like you reach a certain age, right? Like, hey, do I really want to be that 60-year-old guy with teenagers or?
Yeah, but you're going to be that guy anyway.
Yeah.
And I was a step parent. I was helping raise his kids. And, and he dragged his feet long enough.
Yeah.
Like maybe hoping I'd grow out of it.
Yeah.
And I just said, so we eventually separated, but I did donor egg and donor sperm because he said, oh, he offered, oh God, if he ever sees this, he offered to be the donor, but he didn't want to be the father. And I just said, that's not how this works.
Yeah.
And I don't need your sperm.
Yeah. If you're in for a penny, you're in for a pound.
Right. Right. And he would say to me, oh, you just want me for my sperm. And I'm like, do you know how easy that is to get? Like, I don't even have to tell somebody what it's for. I just be like, can I have a cup of sperm?
Yeah. Can I have a cup of sperm, please?
Yep. So he signed up donor egg, donor sperm. And then I ended up pregnant with twins. And
wow. Now, was that a surprise?
No. Was it a surprise? Well, you put in 2 embryos. It's a good chance.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you put in more than one because, God forbid, you spend $15,000-$19,000 on something. And
sure. I suppose that's how these ladies end up with like 8 kids, right?
Yeah. Well, nobody will. I mean, that person lost their license. The person that put in whatever for that Octomom.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you don't do that. But if you're a certain age and you're using your own eggs, like if I was using my own eggs in my 40s, they would put in 5.
Okay.
Right? Because I'm older and the egg quality might not be that good.
Sure.
But
sure.
I use donor egg and donor sperm, so that's young, and we put in 2, and they wouldn't have put in more.
Okay. Was there any concern by the doctors at that time of your age? Yeah.
Yes and no. No, because we're using young donor egg, donor sperm. Like, you're just, at that point, I'm just the oven.
The vessel. Yeah.
Yeah. But because I'm older, advanced maternal age, or they use a Latin word, something gravitas, something that means old.
Yeah.
But they start that at 36, 35.
Okay.
You're old. So I was high risk.
Right.
The fact that I had twins, the fact that I was older.
Sure.
And my doctor was great in New York, but he was off one day and another doctor came in and I was in for some sort of routine something. And he goes, well, you're not the youngest person we've ever had. I'm like, barn door, horse, like, really?
Right.
You know, I'm like, I'm not the oldest either. Shut up. Right? I don't need you. Like, when there's a male doctor in there, there's also a nurse, and she just turns around and looks at him like, are you really?
I bet. Yeah. Yeah. But he's like 100 years old, and so he's used to,
He's a dude, so he needs to shut the fuck up.
Oh, shut the fuck up. Yeah.
And again, I was already really like, why are you telling me this?
Yeah. It's funny. It's funny you say that. Like the older I get, the more I realize that a lot of my life as a man is just learning to just shut the fuck up. Just shut the fuck up. Like nobody.
There's fights not worth having.
100%. You gotta pick those battles.
Been married a couple of times, and it just, and I found myself going, what's the fight about?
Yeah.
There's nothing to fight about.
I find that being a step parent now
is a bag of shit holding job.
Right. Yeah. Like it's a real big exercise a lot of times in just shut the fuck up.
It's hard because you're not the bio parent.
Right.
And there's a dynamic that existed before you got there.
Right.
And I did my best to show at the time I wanted to have my own kids. So people say, well, you don't have kids. You don't get to say that. I'm like, all right, but I'm also not an alcoholic. So I can weigh in on,
right.
What you're doing. My ex's ex was an alcoholic.
Okay.
And I could see what was being done with these kids. And so I doubled down on my efforts to help with school or to help show them like a positive role model.
Right.
And to show my ex, hey, it's okay to have kids with me because look, I'm going to be a very engaged parent and I'm not an alcoholic. And
right. I think that's one of the things I try and do the most with my stepson is just to be a role model and show him how a woman should be treated.
Because then he'll treat
the way I treat his mother. Like I want to emulate the way women should be treated by treating his mother.
Right. Then
well.
he sees a healthy relating.
I will say that it's given me a whole new. I've become much more compassionate and empathetic towards my kid's stepmother, who was my second wife was with us from the time my girls were 4 and 6, And so she was there for those formative years. And so I was always the bio parent, you know, and not being able to understand.
Turn that on.
That would be awesome. And not really understanding what it meant to be a step parent, and now being one going, oh, I really have a whole new understanding.
Well,
so
and kids, you know, they're watching. They're like little sponges, and they want to know that they want to know that they're okay, and that it's okay to like the bio parent, like the step parent.
Sure.
That was hard, you know, because my stepkids had a lot of damage, and they were bonding with me, and they would still have these they were protective of their mother, who was an alcoholic. And like I said, this is somebody, when I say alcoholic, I'm not trying to hurt anybody, but she wasn't able to see what she was doing to her kids. And they would try to, it didn't matter what she was doing. That was mom. And I had to be cognizant of that. I was real careful not to say anything bad about their mother.
There are very significant loyalty issues where that stuff is concerned.
Oh, mommy makes chicken like this, only it's not dry. And I'm like, yeah, well, I can't drink as much as your mother does. But, you know, like I'm just trying not to say, because they're kids.
Sure.
And I said, well, that's nice. I'm so glad you guys have the relationship.
You don't need to eat my dried chicken anyway.
Right. It's just, right. Well, you know. Bless their hearts. It was hard. It was
from
hard.
The mouths of babes.
And then, you know, my ex wanted to make up for what they didn't have, for what they weren't getting from their mom. And we didn't live in the same state. So when we had them, he was Disneyland dad.
Right.
And then if I set some boundaries, like, hey, we're going to wash our hands before we come to the table. He goes, well, what if they don't want to? And I'm like, are we fighting against, we're against this?
Yeah.
Hand washing? This is, again, pre-pandemic, but it's like, it was just because I was setting a rule. Like, I'm making dinner, everybody wash their hands. Well, you know, don't tell them what to do. I'm like, all right, then you tell them to wash their hands. But,
yeah, I think that was probably one of my weaknesses in the same is that I kind of knew, obviously knowing my ex and my daughter's mother very well, was like, I knew that their relationship with her, and I think girls with their mothers kind of have contentious relationships anyway. And so I always wanted my house, and this is the story I'm telling in my own head, was to be like the safe space where they could be who they wanted to be and do what they wanted to do. And a lot of that, I think, is probably just justification or rationalization for myself to take a step back and not having to maybe parent as much as
my ex was the fun guy.
Yeah.
In fact, he would play guitar, and he was really fun, and they would sing and stuff. And at one point, I must have, I don't know, it was time for dinner, or it was whatever I was asking them to do. Get ready for dinner. And he's playing something on the guitar, and he starts strumming, and he goes, she's mean.
Oh,
she's mean. And now they're all singing around the table, she's mean. And I realized, oh my God, like what is happening here?
Yeah.
I'm the bad guy. Wait a minute. When did I become that?
Yeah.
And I said, you can't do that. You can't, like, it's not like I'm their mom. You can't make fun like that. I'm not the person that they have to watch out for because I'm asking for normal, healthy boundaries.
Right.
You know, like if you come into a room, you say hi to the people in the room. That was one of our things. I said, this is about teaching social skills.
Right.
And, you know, it didn't matter what it was. He fought me on it. And it was because he was so worried about hurting the kids or upsetting them or making them not want to be with him.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, it's okay to parent. I'm not, and again, I was not about the person that did the discipline. I wasn't, if they didn't do what we asked, I would bring it to him.
Sure.
Because I didn't want to be that.
Right. Yeah. I definitely think there's not a place where we want to discipline our stepchildren necessarily. I mean, unless it's an emergency situation.
It's my house.
And you have to,
right?
You know, but we'd also have to present a united front like that. I mean, kids they know how to work that. Man.
I'll tell you what, though, I started doing material about being a step parent on stage.
Yeah. Oh, I bet. I would imagine starting comedy later in life, like you had like a huge knowledge, like you had a huge life experience up to that
everybody
point.
does. That's why I like when people start. Like if you start in your 20s, okay, you've had what have you done
Yeah,
so far?
you went to high school.
Weed, masturbating. That's what they talk about.
Right.
The biggest shit you took in the mall. I don't know. Like that's what I would listen to at open mics. But once you're in your 30s and 40s, or maybe you had alcoholic parents, or maybe you had a divorce, or maybe you had some trauma in your life, or maybe there's something unique that you do. That's what I also love about comedies. You can be a real estate agent and do comedy. It doesn't have to be your career. It can be something you enjoy doing.
Sure. Yeah.
Now, I mean, and if you're good at it, you'll get booked. Just be funny.
Sure.
You get more practice, of course, but they say don't quit your day job. Well, it still takes gas to get to an open mic.
Yeah.
So, I think supporting yourself on comedy is hard to do until you've gotten to a certain level, and then you use comedy to branch out into other things, public speaking. Again, I got on the radio. I was, maybe it translates well into commercials or acting. You have kind of an improv-y observational skill set that you wouldn't have otherwise.
I've always been super impressed with comics, like traditional comics who expand into like dramatic roles. And I think of like Jim Carrey or even Adam Sandler, who's always just done like, they're kind of known for campy kind of comedy stuff, but then you see him jump in, or see him jump, and then you see him jump into a serious dramatic role, and just like, holy shit. Like you really start to see the I don't know, maybe you start to see the trauma behind all their comedy, right? It's like they're really able to, like even Kevin Hart, they're really able to tap into that serious side, and I'm always super impressed with that.
Yeah, I think to be a good comic, we talk about this a lot, about being honest, having a real clear opinion is what helps make things funny. When you are sort of vague, or you're telling jokey jokes, and people say, "Oh, I get some laughs," but you're not really. The funnier comics are the ones that are able to really get their opinion across, a really clear opinion, and sometimes they're talking about heavy stuff, being honest about that, or they don't have to. I mean, Seinfeld doesn't talk about particularly heavy things,
right?
But you always get a clear sense of their opinion, and that's when it's real powerful. Yeah. Like, who are your favorite comics? Who do you like?
Gosh, I mean, growing up, like in our generation, the powerhouses for me, like Pryor was a little bit before my time. I was just thinking about this last night in preparation for you coming. Was Eddie Murphy, Raw. I remember just almost just choking, laughing so hard with Eddie Murphy.
And Delirious?
Delirious, Raw.
That was on a tape, and we'd put it in the car, and everybody would do, "Now that's a fire," you know?
Yeah, oh yeah. Oh my God. Sam Kinison, for sure. Andrew Dice Clay.
Yeah.
Was huge. I was actually trying to think like who the A-listers are right now. Like it seemed like there was like a lot of A-list comics back then. And when I think of A-list comics now, I think like Kevin Hart, Dave Chappelle, obviously. Sure. I would have said Chris Rock before this last special, but I don't know. It wasn't quite what I was expecting from him.
You know, I think I've had people who have achieved a certain amount of fame, even local fame. Let's say like Vicky Barbalot, who was she got noticed on America's Got Talent. She's older, and people will come out to see their person. So I would imagine that the people that got to see Chris Rock live, or my person came out with something like. I was a big Prince fan. So if Prince put out an album that maybe wasn't his best album, but was a good album, I was fine with that. The amount of material that Chris Rock has to, like that your person has to come up with.
Sure.
I don't know about all the woke stuff. Again, what I like, who am I?
Yeah.
Chris Rock is sitting there counting his money, going,
Yeah,
you know,
right.
$1,000,001, $1,000,002.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
who doesn't like whatever?
Yeah, who doesn't like my show, bitch?
I enjoyed the special.
Mhm.
There was not everything resonated with me. I'm glad he talked about the Will Smith thing. We were all kind of waiting for that.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely
I am so impressed with having to come up with an hour of material
right.
to each. I mean, how many specials has he had? You know, every couple of years. That's a lot of material.
Yeah.
And I guess, do you get extra points for coming up with a lot of material? A lot of it was really good.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I can't even.
Did it meet expectations? I don't know. It depends how much of a Chris Rock fan you are. He has a very specific style.
Right. I think it wasn't so much the material as it was the delivery. It seemed a little rusty and a little clunky. It seemed like,
you know what?
Like he had only taped it once, whereas like
I think it was live.
Well, yeah. Whereas my understanding is that most specials they do 2 or 3 tapings where you're in the same
But
getup.
it just goes to show you that even somebody super famous, he kind of flubbed a joke and
Sure.
went back, corrected it or something.
Yeah.
That's, you know.
Yeah, I mean that's real, right? And that's part of the.
It was,
that's part
to
of the
me,
whole
there was a lot
experience.
of things that I liked about it, but I could see what wouldn't resonate with some people, and a lot of the woke stuff. Like, I don't want to hear any more COVID material. I don't want to hear about being woke.
Yeah,
but
I'm over it.
But you know,
but I mean,
good for him.
it's a thing. I mean, you know, there's 300 million people in this country, and you know, billions around the world. So I guess they all kind of want to hear about that.
Maybe.
Or a lot of us want to hear about that.
Yeah.
I guess.
But
I don't know.
I think it was a good special. I could see where people might say it's a bit uneven in places, but again, on his worst day,
right?
You know, who is he compared to? Like, I look at who is he compared to me? Who am I to judge a comic like that?
Sure.
I know what I like, but
sure. I can't even imagine what it must be like to be prolific like some of these folks.
Dave Chappelle does
who are
sets
putting
for
out
hours,
right? Or to put out a special every year for years in a row.
I don't know how they do it.
Yeah. I love Gaffigan's voice. Just as kind of sing-songy, kind of. I love that guy.
To try to do, especially with kids, with life. You write a little bit every day. To come up with a new 15 minutes, it's just hard.
I bet
it's a lot, and you throw out most of it.
Yeah. I can't even imagine. I have absolutely no frame of reference on that. So yeah, take everything.
But when it works, you're like, I'm a genius.
Ba-dum-bum. Yeah. Everything Rogan is touching right now is just gold, right? I mean, that guy's like Midas, which is interesting because when I was thinking about A-list like comedians, I don't necessarily put him on that list. Like for me anyway, like he's not at a Kevin Hart or Dave Chappelle like level. Like I was thinking
he's now a personality though. Like he's now got people. I mean, how do you? He talks for a couple of hours.
Yeah, I said,
and he influences people.
I think you would have to. He will definitely go down in history, I think, as one of the most influential people of this generation, of this era, of this time. Just for the number of people that he touches, the number of people that he's given exposure to.
Congratulations, dude! He's got a career. And he's he's again a personality, somebody that you subject yourself to a whole bunch of scrutiny.
Mm-hmm.
Like if he makes a statement,
for sure,
he's talking about his COVID protocol,
mm-hmm.
and of course suddenly, don't be telling people that, don't be giving medical advice. It's hard. I think that kind of that level of scrutiny would be very stressful.
He's very uniquely authentic.
Mm.
And I think that speaks to
there are a lot of comics
most people
who maybe aren't necessarily my taste,
mm-hmm.
but who are really good, or they're subversive, they're a little dark.
Mm.
And you can just tell they're great writers.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many good comics out there, and I love that about this era that we're in Netflix, and
mm-hmm.
where you can just, I can binge watch comedy specials
Sure.
and see a whole range
Sure.
of talent,
It's,
all different ages.
It's interesting that there's, I mean, comedy is not just stand up, right? I mean, you've got comedy writers for shows who've never been on a stage.
Some people are really good writers and they not great performers.
Yeah. Yeah. It just seems like there's a lot of different things that you can do kind of within that comedy genre other than just get up and stick a mic in your face, you know?
Well, I think that gives you enough public exposure doing that people want to hear more from you.
Mm-hmm.
If you're, I don't know because I haven't written for someone else.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's probably harder to do that. And I think it's very easy to get your work stolen and get taken advantage of. But performing it on stage where other people hear it and it's recorded, so timestamped, dated at least.
Yeah.
It's
That's
not
mine.
that people
That's mine, bitch.
well, yeah, it's not that people don't steal material. I would be very surprised to see someone stealing my, let's say, uterus material.
Yeah.
There's a lot of parallel thought, though. If I want to talk about balls, I would not be the first person to talk about balls.
Yeah, right.
Like, you stole my balls material. That's just, you know what? Write a better joke, right?
Yeah.
Get smarter, get better.
Yeah.
But I know people who have had material stolen, and it's heartbreaking. You know, they
I'm
put
sure.
a lot of effort into it, or something's performing it, and then someone else uses it and gets more well known for it. Sparza. It's disheartening.
Yeah.
To see someone who doesn't have to do that, you know, go and do that.
Yeah. Well, it's taking the easy way out, right? They didn't put in the work
Or
for
maybe they did.
that art.
But maybe they did. Like you're a good comic, you're working hard, and let's say you're, you know, there's 3 Latino comics. You know, you're 3 in a genre, or you're like, I'm on an all-female lineup.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, you're all working together about the same time, coming up at the same time, and then somebody does your joke somewhere or in an audition, and suddenly you're on, let's say, America's Got Talent.
Mm-hmm.
Where if I wrote the joke, but somebody else got famous with it, it's now their joke. It doesn't matter how long I've been telling it, because now they've done it on TV, and it's, oh, they're the person that does that bit.
So now I can't do it anymore.
Right. That, and it's happened to famous people.
I'm sure.
I'm trying to think who. It's easy enough to Google. There's enough well-known comedians that have been accused of stealing material. It's just a horrible accusation.
Yeah.
But as an upcoming comic, like there were people that wouldn't perform in front of certain people if they knew they were in the club, because they didn't want their material stolen. It's just, again, it's not a huge risk I have. I am not so busy or so in demand that someone's stealing my material, but I know how I would feel, especially when it's like almost word for word or down to the cadence. You're like, okay, I could see that.
Yeah. That goes a little bit
That's
beyond
horrible.
just the same thought, right?
It's painful because it's something that you worked on for a long time, and it came out of you. It was born of you.
Right. It's my child.
Yeah. You tested it to see where it worked, where it didn't work.
Sure.
But I would say there's a lot of parallel thought, you know?
Yeah.
How many jokes are about laundry or cats and dogs? And I mean,
yeah. That's another cool thing about YouTube and the interwebs now, is that you really get an appreciation of the time and effort and work that people's art is, whether it's you know, comedy or public speaking or, you know, painting. Or,
I go to YouTube University for all kinds of stuff.
Sure.
I had a Prius. I had to figure out how to jumpstart it, because it's not like I didn't think it was like a regular
all
car.
Things through YouTube.
Right?
All
I went to
things through
YouTube University, how to jumpstart a Prius.
Yeah.
And taught myself where the cables go.
Yeah.
Things not to do.
But I mean, pre-internet, you would never, at least I don't know, you would never have thought that, you know, every night comics are working on their material and they're refining it, but unless you were there every night seeing it, you wouldn't have seen that process or appreciated it.
Right. So by the time these people are 10 years in and they just go up and they do something, you're like, oh, they make it look so easy.
Right. And now on YouTube, you can see the guy or a person do the same joke like 100 times and
In
see
different-
the progression of it.
or where it changes.
Right.
Or somebody has, like Bert Kreischer has a great story about being, I want to say, in college and going to Russia.
The
And
machine.
The machine. And it's just a delicious
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
And I know every word of it is true.
Yeah, and he keeps getting mileage
But it
out of
was-
it. Now he's got a movie out
But
of
he was
it.
on a special that didn't do well because he wouldn't wear a shirt.
Right.
And he performs topless. That's his thing.
Yeah.
So the network was like, you're giving people a reason to change the channel. So that it didn't do well. But
Yeah.
that bit went viral.
Mhm.
So again, now he's where he is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that story is just
Yeah.
the way he's a raconteur. The way he tells a story is amazing. And I know a few comics like that
Yeah.
who just weave a story that get you so invested.
Mm-hmm.
Mark DeMeo is a New York cop, retired New York detective,
Okay.
who has a podcast. Who's incredibly interesting, great at telling a story. And
I bet.
again, there's so many. I would say New York. I say New York because it's also LA, but my experience was with New York comics
Mm-hmm.
who are working in all different places and have all different shows and all different acting bits on TV shows and
Mhm.
dramas and whatnot that we may never hear of, but they're successful.
Sure.
I think he's actually now in Las Vegas, but he had a one-man show about 20 and out, about having done his 20 years as a
Okay.
detective and then
Yeah.
retiring, and it was amazing.
Yeah. Talk about a depth and breadth of material, right?
Mhm.
Just, oh my goodness.
But you could be a gynecologist and have a very unique comedy set. It's what I love about comedy is that you come to it with whatever tools you have, with whatever your life experience is, whatever your stories are,
Yeah.
and they can still resonate because it's part of the human condition.
Right.
You don't have to have had that particular experience to understand to feel someone else's trauma or someone else's experience or disappointment.
Mhm. And I think that goes back to, we've all, even though we have different experiences, they're also very, very similar, just kind of variations on a theme, right? They say that all the stories have really been told. It's just in the
delivery.
the delivery and the details, I guess.
Yeah, and your attitude that's driving it. Oh, this is weird, and then getting you to see their perspective. Oh, this is scary, and getting you to see their perspective. I'm so popular today. No one ever calls me.
People love you.
Right? No one ever calls me because I'm at whatever. Everybody's got these phones.
Yeah.
And they text and whatnot.
Yeah.
So if I call someone, it's like, why are you calling?
Yeah.
Like, couldn't you just text me? It's
Yeah.
like, well, yeah, but okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Don't ever call me. I just would text. Text is fine. Don't
Yeah.
ever call. So I know you lived in San Diego. Were you born in San
born
Diego?
in San Diego, lived in San Diego, and moved to New York as an adult, and stayed there for 25 years because I was too stubborn to admit I failed.
Why New York?
I was in the Williamstown Theater Festival in Massachusetts one summer, and that was my experience with Back East. That was transformative, and I thought, oh, well, people said you should go to the city, and I thought, Boston? Like what city? And they said, no, New York City. And I'm like, okay, because there's a great for acting, and that's what I was going to do. So I came home. I worked for 3 months. I worked at the Comedy Store as a waitress. I worked at a few other clubs, and saved up money and moved to New York. And I figured I could always go to LA because I'm from San Diego if I wanted to come home.
Mm-hmm.
And I moved to New York, and I just didn't want to admit that I was starving to death and failing. So I got different jobs, all different jobs. I had a few little acting things, and it wasn't until I got married a couple of times. You get distracted. I owned a bar. I did a bunch of stuff.
You owned a bar?
Yeah, in Brooklyn.
Wow.
Yeah. Garrettson Beach, Brooklyn.
How cool.
It was exciting.
Which is not the same thing as cool.
No, everybody thinks owning a bar is amazing.
Yeah.
I ended up on the Maury Povich show before they did that baby, who's your baby
Yeah,
daddy
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, uh-huh.
It was women with disgusting jobs. Somebody had seen me cooking, and I was covered in pizza sauce or something one day. That was the cook's day off, so I was making whatever.
Nice.
And it was women with dirty jobs, and I ended up on the Maury Povich show, and they were like, "What's it like owning a bar?" And I said, "Oh, my mother is so proud."
I bet.
Yeah. I said, "I'm the owner.
Mhm.
So I'm the one that has to stick my hand in the men's toilet to get the shot glass out
Yeah.
because
Awesome.
I'm the owner."
That's right.
Yeah. It was,
Baller.
yeah, the glory of owning something. You
Yeah.
have to really you have to really like people and care about their experience to be in the hospitality industry.
Yeah, there is that.
It's, yeah.
I guess I won't be getting into hospitality
No.
anytime soon.
No.
Yeah.
No. But it's also what I like about comedy shows. I care about their experience.
Yeah.
That not just that it's funny, but like, okay, if I'm doing something in a venue, it's like, are they getting drinks? Is everything okay? Because I don't want the roast beef order to be what's happening in the audience
Yeah.
and taking away from the show. So if I partner with a restaurant, it needs to be someone that cares about the guest experience.
So you were in New York for 9/11?
Yes. Yeah.
Tell
and
me
that's
about
when
your- tell me
that's when
about
we
your
had
9/11 experience.
we had the bar in Brooklyn, and I was going back and forth between Manhattan and Brooklyn, and the area that we're in, Garrettson Beach, the water. We had a lot of cops and firemen, sanitation workers, and you could see downtown Manhattan. And I'd stayed overnight because I got out of work late, and I turned on the news. I was supposed to go to the health department, but instead of going in, I decided to be an hour later and let me just catch the news in the morning. Because I think I got to bed at like 5 or 6. So it's about 9 o'clock, and I'm watching the news. And I'm seeing the plane hit the building, and I'm like, what? Oh my God, this is happening now. Like, what? And we saw the plane collapse, the building collapse. And all I remember is calling my mother, and it had to be about 6 in the morning in California. And I said, I just want you to know I'm okay. And then that was it, because the cell towers, all that equipment was
Right.
on top of the buildings. The
Right.
buildings went down. Like, there was no more communication.
Right.
And later over the course of the next few days, when the buildings went down, the wind blew the ephemera, the bits of paper and stuff. It floated over the water to Brooklyn, and we were picking up pieces of paper and receipts. And I just remember thinking, man, this was in someone's purse.
Right.
It was a receipt. This is a shopping list. It was sickening, you know. There was a preschool or something in the building. There was somebody went to work that day and just never came home. And I'm holding a piece of paper from their office. Like, I cannot still think about that and not be moved, because I think about my children. I think if I went to work and just never came home and they never found me, and just, we collected these pieces of paper. Everybody was out in the street picking up these pieces of paper. I gave them to somebody, and I imagine they saved them. But later, I had an ex work for the 9/11 memorial. I mean, it's just such an amazing thing to see.
It really is.
But
if you haven't been there to see it.
But being in Brooklyn, being in the outer boroughs, and our business was based, we had cops and firemen, and people were going in to try to find relatives and digging by hand, and we sent cases of water to first responders. We were little, but we almost went out of business, because that was just after the summer. People would be coming back to school and starting to go back to dinner, going out to dinner, instead of being away on vacation. Now our bills from the summer are coming due, air conditioning and whatnot. And it was really hard to stay in business, because we lost clientele.
Sure.
It was devastating. Everybody got real patriotic, though. I mean, people of all ages, I'm going to go join the military and I'm going to go kick some ass. And I'm like,
Yeah, I mean, do you remember what the country was like on 9/12? I mean, talk about being galvanized in a purpose, and everybody being united, and it was such a scary time. But I don't recall the country ever being united like it was on September 12th.
it's really hard to explain to people who didn't experience how you were impacted or how you were affected, or
Sure.
if you lost people. I'm fortunate that not a lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
but people who's they were friends or they were relatives of people that I knew.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just the thought that it could happen here, that they could come get us here.
Yeah.
That someone would fly a plane and not care about landing it. Like, it's inconceivable.
Right.
And you think about all the little people, like just maybe they're delivering bagels for breakfast for the conference room. They just show up in the building that day, like that time. For whatever reason, I decided to wait to go into Manhattan because my choice to wait that hour kept me from being right there. The health department was right there in downtown Manhattan.
It's crazy how many stories are like that. I called in sick to work that day. I waited an hour to go to the health department.
Yeah.
XYZ, and just by the grace of God, managed to miss.
Yeah, because I would have been there. I just
that.
was tired and running late, and I said, I'll go in 30 minutes. I'll go in an hour. And let me turn on the news and said, it's not something I normally did.
Yeah.
But because I went back and forth over the bridge, just watching that open pit of that building burn for weeks, it was crazy. The smoke, and just for them to come out and say, oh, the air quality's fine. But you can see that it's not fine.
Yeah.
I was in Upper Manhattan, so it was not so much a problem for me, but Lower Manhattan was a mess. And people are still dying of 9/11 related issues.
Yeah. Yeah, so, with all the chemicals and everything that, I mean, that's all of our construction is all chemical. Who knows what people ingested and
no, but they doubled down in New York about like post 9/11 New York. You don't mess around in the airport. You don't leave a backpack anywhere. Like I've called in backpacks and random crap I've seen.
I bet.
You just learn to be. It wasn't until I got back to California. It took me about a good year to de-escalate.
Yeah.
I think the power went out in my mom's house when I was staying there, and I was like, oh my God, terrorism. Not just we flipped a breaker. I just thought, oh, this is what they do. First they cut the power, then they run in. I'm like, we're in the middle of the suburbs. Like, why would terrorism be my first go-to? Or being able to walk into a doctor's office and not have my bag searched or take my shoes off, or a lawyer's office. You could just walk into a hospital? Really?
Yeah.
It doesn't happen like that in New York.
Yeah, it's crazy how that's become our
heightened alert.
Our new normal, right? But that's that's our new normal. I think that's what really surprised me so much about the pandemic was that I thought there was no way in America that we were gonna allow ourselves to be locked down for the amount of time that we were. They said, okay, yeah, everybody.
Oh, we all thought we were going back in 2 weeks.
Everybody go ahead and stay home for 2 weeks, flatten the curve.
When it was spring break.
And I was like, hey, right. I mean, I'd been retired from law enforcement for a certain amount of time at that point. So I was like, hey, no one's trying to like hurt me, throw shit on me, spit on me, call me mean names. I mean, I can just sit here on the couch and save the world. I was like, I'm good. And I was like, but there's no way this is gonna last.
Right.
And then it just went on and on and on. And
my kids were in kindergarten, and the protocol was to spend an hour online each day with the teacher, and until the end of the year. And it's amazing my kids can read. But I started pirate school. Like I had to come up with things to entertain them.
Right.
So we did scavenger hunts, and they got to pick something from the treasure box if they got their sight words. I tried to really double down. And then the following year that we were all just distance learning online, we gained 30 pounds. I gained 30 pounds. Just every other hour was snack.
Yeah. What else is there to do?
And I'm so sick of the pandemic, and it just, where were you? I think it, in 20 years from now, it'll be really surreal to talk about. I don't know if there'll be other pandemics, but
no, I guess
but suddenly the world is closed, and are we ever going back?
Yeah, I guess my point in bringing that up was just that. How did we get to the point where that was acceptable, where we were just willing to allow our lives to be,
well, we didn't know,
to be changed in so many significant ways? And I wonder how much of that goes back to the fear of 9/11. You know, like I guess
trauma response?
maybe it's an odd parallel, but yeah, the trauma response of that.
Well, there's that. There was okay. This was done to us. This was created in a lab in China and released on us on purpose. There was a bunch of that stuff,
Right.
and I can't know. I'm not privileged enough to know the
Right.
truth.
Yeah.
But we didn't know that it couldn't be on stuff that on your groceries. You know, you're freaking out about everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, fear is definitely.
We ran out of toilet paper.
So I remember going to the stores, multiple, and just looking for, okay, there's no toilet paper on the shelves. Hey, look, there's some coffee filters. Those are made out of paper.
Everybody bought a bidet.
Oh, hey, look, there's some shop towels. Oh, hey, look, I can buy 24 white hand towels, cloth hand towels, So if I have to, I can go old school cloth diapers
Right.
and clean those off.
No, the people
if I
bought
have to.
bidets.
Yeah, madness.
Who would have thought? The stores are out of stuff,
Yeah.
and we still have supply chain issues.
Yeah.
But if you had to describe it to somebody, you couldn't. They couldn't imagine it. So maybe to that end, the 9/11, just how the whole country feels the trauma.
Yeah. I mean, those the kids now. I mean, their parents lived through that, right? And so how much of our fear from 9/11 do we put onto our kids? And now, yeah, with the pandemic, now those kids who didn't experience 9/11 are now in their early 20s, mid 20s, and are we just kind of generationally becoming more fearful? And I'm totally just
Are we wrong, though?
thinking as I'm talking, so I probably sound like a complete idiot. But
no, my kids are 9, and I'm being out of school when you're supposed to be getting socialized. From first grade, and then they come back to second grade with masks. They're now in third grade. But I would say there was a ton of anxiety from my kids, developed all kinds of anxiety, and I couldn't leave the room. Like
my wife's a high school teacher, and her last school year, so the first year that kids were back in school full time.
Yeah, people didn't know how to be.
Was awful. She just like. And especially with the kids who were in 8th grade, missed 9th grade, and now are in 10th grade in high school, and she just said they were just completely unsocialized. They just had no idea how to act. They'd one minute,
and they're in high school.
Yeah, one minute they were in middle school, being a kid.
There's a lot of learning loss.
And now you're in high school, expected to have this, certain, maturity, about you, and it just wasn't there. Like she was ready to toss in the towel last year. She was like, I am done.
After the first week of school last year, when everybody went back to school, I saw the teachers at the end of the first week. They looked like they'd been hit by a bus.
Yes.
They're like, and the kids are just
like, what the fuck just happened?
right. And they're at home, and maybe they're getting coddled, or maybe they're getting, what's working for you at home is not how you behave in school. There was a lot of squirreliness.
But now, fortunately, I mean, now she's one year down and is just completely rejuvenated and revitalized, and just like, everything came back around. It was just they just had to work through those difficult times, and now she's back to loving her job. But it was just super weird time. Yeah.
I'm glad. I'm glad they're healed.
Thank God for teachers. Yeah. I wonder if I like to think that the pandemic gave parents a whole new appreciation for those.
I don't know. I'm on the PTA, and people are throwing money at fundraisers and events, they're so happy to get out and do stuff. Family dances. Suddenly there's like 400 people there.
Yeah.
All the events at
Yeah.
school are very well attended because
Yeah.
people just want to be out.
Yeah. Fuck inflation. Take our money.
Well, it's going for the kids.
Yeah.
So yeah, PTA is we're busy. We're having a lot of events and a lot of pressure to up our game.
Oh, I bet. Yeah. 25 years in New York.
Yes. And it's interesting to have gone from the pre-cell phone age into, in New York to now everybody's interconnected and everything's technology and you have to keep up. I remember when computers were, you have a computer, a monitor, and a printer.
Yeah, right.
And that's like a $4,000 system.
Yeah. Who prints anything anymore? Nobody prints anything, right?
I print so much stuff. I print tons of crap.
Remember when you were going somewhere and you had to actually print directions?
MapQuest.
MapQuest, right? MapQuest, how to get there.
Yeah, now what do you do if your phone you have no reception?
Yeah. Yeah. Follow the blue dot.
Oh, my mom missed a turn and ended up on an Indian reservation and had to get driven out because there was no reception where she was.
Yeah. There's a lot of younger people now who can't unless they have a phone to look at, they don't know how to get to, hey, how are you going to get to, such and such a place? I have no idea. Like, what's the address for whatever,
I like people who give directions. Go north for 2 miles. North? I don't know where anything.
Well, that's what I always loved about California was that directions were super easy. If you're going toward the ocean, then you're going west.
Right.
Away from the ocean is east. If the ocean is on your left, you're going north. And if the ocean is on your right, you're going south. But I go somewhere like I have family in Texas, like San Antonio. I go somewhere like that, I am completely lost. There's no real mountains there. Unless I'm sticking a fucking stick in the ground and following the sun, I'm completely
right. And you're
lost.
only there because if you're in one of those places, you'd only be because of somebody who lives there.
Yes.
Then they all know where everything is.
Right.
Down by where the old church burnt down.
Yeah.
Turn left.
Really, the only reason I'm going to Texas is like if somebody dies, right?
It's where the old gas station used to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, go down to Herbs and
right.
make a left, and then at the tree make a right, and yeah, okay, whatever. So how'd you get back to California?
I had kids. I'd spent the 25 years there. I got pregnant. I had the twins, and my boyfriend Josh helped pack us up, and
Okay.
I was going to move. That was the plan, to have kids and then move back. Stay with my mom for a couple of years and then figure out where to go. But he packed us up. We moved back to San Diego and then moved up in Temecula. So because I knew my kids were going to be in school, could kind of spread out,
Yeah.
As nice as it was to live at my mom's house again, it's hard to go home because suddenly you're 15 again.
Right. How did you end up in Temecula versus somewhere like Los Angeles? I mean, especially with comedy and stuff.
No, I wanted to be close to. I could have stayed in San Diego, but we couldn't have gotten a nice enough house. Like I didn't want something with bars on the windows.
Yeah.
San Diego's very expensive, crowded at the time. Temecula was not, and it was close enough to family, close enough to LA, close enough to San Diego. It was like right in the middle, the Inland Empire. And I looked at some of these houses to rent. I came from a 750 square foot apartment in New York. So to be able to rent a 3,000 square foot house with a pool in a cul-de-sac in a school,
rich,
I was
bitch.
like, oh my God. I was like, how am I ever going to fill it up with stuff? Guess what I did?
Yeah. Funny how that happens.
I'm busy trying to throw stuff out, but no, it was great. My kids had their own rooms. I mean, now, of course, since the pandemic, everybody realized, I don't have to have commercial real estate. I don't need an office. I can work from home. And everybody in Silicon Valley or the Bay Area, where $100,000 is now poverty, they were like, let's just go buy a house in Temecula. So my rent went up like $500. But houses that were $450,000 are now $900,000.
Yeah.
The same house. I'm looking across the street. Nothing happened to it. Within 6 months, it's worth like $800,000, $900,000.
Yeah, I don't know how anybody is buying.
And I can't afford to move. Like, it's like, do you die in this expensive house? Because I can't afford the money to leave it. And then where am I going to go?
Yeah.
So I figured just better to, donate plasma or something and stay in the house.
Yeah, I don't know how young people are getting into the housing market in San Diego or LA at this point. You know, it's just, I mean, you've got to have like 2 people making 6 figures just to get into a starter home now.
Get creative.
It's crazy.
Creative.
Yeah, I guess.
Sell stuff.
Yeah. Like move in all your extended family.
Something, I don't know.
Yeah. All those family from the Philippines, come live with us.
I don't know. I don't know how people are doing it.
Yeah.
Eggs, gas. I joke about the dollar store, Dollar Tree. You know, they went up, they raised their prices a quarter. Now the dollar store is now $1.25. I said, it gets more expensive. They're going to have to call it the store.
Yeah, right.
Right? Yeah.
Crazy.
I don't know. It's like too expensive to be alive, and you can't afford to die. Because what happens to your family? It just
Good times.
Good times. We're hanging in there. Everybody's hanging in there.
Man. So your kids are how old now?
9.
9.
Twins. And then 54.
Wow.
I'm tired.
You're a very busy woman.
I am.
Yeah.
But I tell you, I mean, I don't know that I appreciate them more because I'm older, but I definitely appreciate them more than I would have if I was much younger when I had them. The experience.
Yeah, I think that's probably a very valid statement. I had both my kids were born, by the time I was 30, you know, they were both here. I mean, and even that was a little bit older than a lot of my peers were doing. And yeah, in your 30s and stuff, you're really still trying to hustle, right?
And you're so involved. The things you like, you know, if I ever get married again, I don't care. I have the kids. We're good. I mean, it'd be nice to have a life.
Yeah.
Because they're going to grow up and go somewhere. But
sure.
But they're now, the only thing about being older is now they're doing math in their heads. Like my son's like, how old are you? You know, he's trying to figure out, again, anxiety. He's trying to think, well, if I'm 16, I'll be able to drive. How old will you be when I'm 16? They're very aware of my mortality.
Wow.
If I cough, are you okay? You know, they're very
yeah, that's crazy.
They're worried. Huh? And I'm like, well, so I'm doing the best I can to make sure they're okay in the event something happens to me. 54 is not old.
Sure.
But if I had a heart attack right after leaving this room, you'd be like, you know, she was 54.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like such a surprise.
Yeah.
That something could go wrong.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, people our age are starting to kick it.
Right.
You know, again, it's a weird age to be.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to equip them with life skills.
Yeah.
Teach them wash the dishes, take the trash out. You know, like, you need to be able to survive. I'm trying not to scare them.
Yeah.
But to equip them.
Well, I mean, we're raising adults, right? I mean, that's what parenting is all about. Is we're raising people to be good adults, hopefully. So
traumatized adults are raising traumatized
adults. hurt people.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to do it without cursing.
Yeah, that's all right.
No, my kids are going to Legoland on what we've made during the pandemic.
Really?
Curse jar. Oh, yeah. Hundreds.
Nice.
Hundreds.
Nice.
Buying an Xbox.
There you go.
For sure.
What's new on the horizon for you? Anything good coming up?
Anything good? God willing, just to be able to keep working. I mean, I've got shows. I've got again, the monthly show. Because I'm older now, I'm a little spoiled. Mm-hmm. So I like doing the theater shows because they're classy.
Nice.
Sounds great. I'm not fighting someone at the bar for like, hey, shut the fuck up over there.
Yeah.
It's the people that are come to the shows are there for comedy. Yeah. So I do better shows. I get to have more fun. I'm okay with that. Again, because I'm a single parent at this point, for me, having the nice balance of being able to, work at night and then see my kids during the day and participate in sports and school stuff. Mm-hmm. If I'm not the busiest person, until they're more independent, until they're grown, I'm okay with that. Because comedy you can still do up until you're a billion, as long as you stay relevant.
Yeah, wheel you out there in your
wheelchair. That's right. Listen, I did it when I was pregnant, when I was really, really pregnant.
Yeah.
I was 8 months pregnant, and so they were wheeling me up on stage, helping me, hoisting me up there.
Ali Wong.
That's right.
Samos.
Right, and you think, oh man, I
Killing
could
it.
make a career out of this. I was doing really good when I was pregnant. I thought, oh, I'm not going to stay pregnant, stupid.
Yeah.
Like, right at one point, this show's over.
Yeah, well, you get a pillow or something.
No,
Stuff that on
no,
there.
but I know. I just remember when I got up there, I was at Gotham Comedy Club in Manhattan, and they're just looking at you like she could go at any time. I was out to here, and then, but I'd only gained like 30 pounds.
Okay,
and I was
so it was all in the front, huh?
So if you from the back or from straight on, you
Yeah.
couldn't tell.
Yeah.
And I
From the back, it's like, hey, Melissa, holy
right?
shit,
So I
what
turned to
happened?
the side. I said, I know what you're thinking. I turned to the side. I look like the letter B.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I got my hair cut. And they was like,
Yeah.
you know.
How
But-
do we get tickets for these shows?
Oh, well, the shows in Temecula at the Merc are always TemeculaTheater.org.
Okay.
All the comedy shows are there. We do the graduation shows. If you want to see beginning comics and what they work on, we do those monthly. So we're teaching some improv classes. It's all there and easy to TemeculaTheater.org
Awesome.
to get tickets to. And again, we're bringing in people that you'd pay top dollar to see at casinos, at clubs. And because it's a 50, 70 seat venue, you're up close and personal.
Yeah.
You can talk to them after the show. You can take a picture with them. It's very, very cool.
Awesome. Where can people find you?
People can find me on Instagram at Melissa is Funny, or Empire Comedy SD for San Diego on Instagram and Facebook.
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming.
Oh, thanks so much for
This was a lot of
having
fun. Woo. Bye, everybody. See ya.